right, so welcome back to part two. So we're going to be talking about subclasses. So we're actually going to make a subclass of bank account. So we're going to extend from what we did last time. It's going to be called an ATM bank account, and it's going to have a withdrawal fee. So whenever you do a withdrawal, there's going to be a fee associated with withdrawing money. And we're going to show you a little bit about different constructors that you can do and kind of how subclasses need to work with their parents. So you can go and open up your playground again. And you can find the subclass area. And so what we're going to do in our subclass is we're going to make a new class called ATM Bank Account. ATM Bank Account is, of course, going to be a subclass of bank account. The syntax for saying that your subclass is just colon and then whatever your superclass is. It turns out that you implement a protocol, by the way. I'm just kind of getting ahead of myself. And you were to like implement something. Let's say you implemented the printable protocol. You would just put comma, and then you would say what protocol you implement. You'll notice the only difference between the two is what color they are, which is, I don't know, kind of weird to use color in your code readability. At first, I didn't really love this, right? I was like, you know, how can you tell if it's a subclass or just implements a protocol? You have to know what that thing is, but they do make the color different. So I don't know. Some people, you know, might not like. So in Java, it says like, you know, implements before the protocol names. Here you just stick them right on there. You can only subclass one class anyway. So if this first class is actually a real class, then it's a subclass. If it's a protocol, you implement that protocol. And if you can implement as many protocols as you want. And we'll get to protocols later. All right, I got off on a tangent there. I'll try not to do that a lot, but sometimes it happens. So we want a special variable for this subclass. We're going to call it withdrawal fee. So anytime you make a withdrawal, there'll be a withdrawal fee. I'm going to choose to go ahead and set a default withdrawal fee of $2. So if somebody's constructed and they don't have some default, I'll let that be their default. Now we've got to start making constructors. We're actually going to make three constructors. We're going to make a subclass constructor, so one that's the same as the previous ones. We're going to make a new constructor, and we're also going to make something called a convenience constructor. I don't really care too much about what order they're in. I just want to show you kind of the three different situations you might be in. So one situation you might be in is you might override the same constructor that your superclass uses. If you choose to do this, that's fine. So in this case, I'm passing in just name and balance. So I'm going to have to set the withdrawal fee to be equal to the default withdrawal fee. And then I'm just going to call super init with the name and balance that I got passed into this function. Swift is really picky about the order, so you have to initialize any parameters that were in the subclass before you go call the superclass. And there's good documentation about all of this. Just know that if you do it wrong, you're going to get errors until you do it right? They won't let you do certain things. So that's kind of a subclass initializer. Let's also go ahead and make a new initializer such that it receives all of the different parameters. So it's going to receive the name just like before, the balance just like before, and then also, if you'd like, you could pass in what the withdrawal fee is as well in this one. By the way, as far as spacing goes with my colons, you can see that whenever I let it autocomplete, it chose to not put a space before it. That is optional, so you can do it however you'd like to do it. In this constructor, we have a couple options for how we want to do it. What I'm going to choose to do is I'm going to set the self.withdrawal fee, and then I'm going to go ahead and call super. So I'm just going to go ahead and call super with everything else. So it's actually the exact same as what it was before. All right, so you can see they're very similar. It's just one used the default value, one lets you actually pass it in. Just because this is going to get kind of big, I'm going to tighten it up a little bit here. Then the last one that I want to make is what's called a convenience constructor. There have been convenience constructors around for a long time, but the thing that's different about Swift is they actually have a word for it, right? So if you want to make something that's a convenience constructor, you go ahead and write convenience in front of it. It's going to have to then call one of the other constructors of this same subclass. So in this case, what we're going to do is if somebody passes in no parameters, they just say init, then what we're going to choose to do is we're going to actually initialize them with various defaults. And so what I want to do is I want to actually call one of the inits of this subclass. And what we're going to do is we're just going to call the one that had a name and a balance. So we're just going to give it a name of anonymous. And then if we didn't get past anything in, we better pass in a balance of $0. Cool. And so just like that, I've got a convenience constructor. I chose to pass in no parameters for my convenience constructor, but you could pass in parameters for your convenience constructor. So those are the three initializers that I wanted to make. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to, of course, override the withdrawal. So if you start typing withdrawal and hit enter, you can see it types override for you because it knows that it's a withdrawal. I'm going to choose to call super. I could, write the whole thing. It wouldn't have been a big deal. But I'm going to choose to call super with the amount. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take balance and decrement it more by whatever the withdrawal fee is. So I chose to override it. I chose to call super just because if it had been doing a lot, it's nice to call super. Turns out I know what it does, and I could have just implemented it. And then after it finishes, I'm going to zing you with an additional withdrawal fee. So you got to love the ATM bank account class. So if we try this guy out, what we're going to do is I'm going to uncomment the code that's here and just see if it works. So in this version, I'm using the convenience constructor. So I have no name. And so what I do is I just create some account. I called it Bob account in this case. And then I did a deposit and a withdrawal. Now you'll notice that I called it Bob account, but I didn't actually set the name. If I wanted to set the name, I could. And to be honest, I can just go ahead and access that name variable directly, which is kind of nice, but it's also kind of a concern if you're really like security guy. So if we wanted to, we could go ahead and use one of the other constructors. I'll just say my account 2 is a bank account. And if we wanted to, we could just say, me, and my balance is $100. You'll notice that if I do this constructor, I get the default withdrawal fee of $2. And so now if I did my account 2 dot withdrawal, and if I withdrew $10, that would actually take me down to 88. If I wanted to, I could also create one using the other constructor, so my account 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in a name, a balance, and then I'm also going to pass in a withdrawal fee. And what the heck, I'll make the withdrawal fee on this person very cheap. He'll have a 1 cent withdrawal fee, and then as I withdraw things from his account, you can see that he'll lose a very small amount for his ATM withdrawals. So that's kind of the idea of the subclass. You can see that we also practiced a little bit with different initializers, but the syntax is pretty simple. You say that you're a subclass, you add any parameters that your subclass needs. If you override one of the other functions, you just have to make sure you include the word override. And then we also went through and we talked about the constructors a little bit and how we can have a convenience constructor, and if it should call another constructor of this class, we overrode a previously existing constructor. We had to make sure to call super init. And then we had kind of like our designated constructor, and he also called his superclasses constructor. So you can see that there's a lot of little minor details about best practice in here, but hopefully you've got a good idea for how you create subclasses in Swift. All right, that's it for classes. We're going to be using them a ton when we actually start doing app development. See you then.